Why don't you give me a sign?
This is Corinna Jane.
The leaves are trailing on that shore. It's not your problem, it's mine.
With her brand new single, Give Me a Sign. As featured on BBC Introducing.
It's just the way it's gotta be. Give me a sign about the things that we don't know. Why don't you give me a sign?
Corinna Jane, Give Me a Sign. Out now.
It's not your problem, it's mine.
Hello, I'm Sophia Jessica, and welcome to the Fan Carpet.
So it's wonderful to speak to you today. How's everything going for you?
It's going well. It's going well. Yeah, we're getting really excited to screen. It's going to be our first in-person screening this Saturday, so I'm very excited to see how people react watching a movie in a movie theater. And so yeah, feeling pretty pumped.
Awesome. So if we go back to the beginning, was there a defining moment for you to get into the entertainment industry?
There wasn't, I don't think for me, a particularly defining moment. Like, I think it was like a series of little steps. I also, like, for me, it didn't quite come together until like a little later. Like, I know a lot of my friends that I met in film school, you know, like I was one of the few people who didn't quite have like an origin story that could date back from, you know, when I was a kid, because I think around 16, 17, something like that, I started to think about it, and really like the idea of going to film school and entering this industry formed when I was like right about more or less ready to apply for college. So it was just a combination of, you know, watching some great movies, discovering this art form, and discovering in a form, like a way and a form of communicating that just feels unlike any other, because it just allows you such a great, such a wide breadth of, you know, like tools and means. And then so I kind of fell in love with it, and first it was from a distance, and then, you know, then it became more specific. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I had a specific moment with it.
Okay. All right. So what was it about The Last Thing Mary Saw that made you want to be a part of it?
This is a story that I wrote too. So I think at the time when I came up with the story, I was doing a lot of kind of personal, individual studying, and a lot of visual art paintings from the 19th century, especially from Northern Europe, and that kind of started to inspire some of the visual threads of the movie, the female subjects, the maid, the funeral. And so it all began as a question of, I wonder what those figures, what those images, and the stark, kind of very composed situations, I wonder what they're thinking about. I wonder what's going on and everything. And so that really caught onto me. And then as I developed the character, I began to kind of like fall in love with them more and more, and their fight, their desire for togetherness, which seems something so simple and so basic. The idea that at that time, but even today, we live in a world where so many people try to put a barrier between people, just kind of really struck me as something that I wanted to discuss and that I wanted to expose. And so it really, what did it for me was the kind of affection that I began to feel for these two characters and for their goal. Yeah.
Awesome. So obviously we all know Stefanie and Isabelle from their various works in the horror genre. What was it specifically about them that made them the perfect choices for the roles of Eleanor and Mary?
Well, I first cast Stefanie, and of course, everything always begins with other performances that I've seen her achieve in different movies, and I really liked her, and I really liked the way how, you know, she had some sort of like very kind of quiet intensity to her performances. She's very good at, she's very good at acting dialogue, but like what really caught me was her ability to act without saying anything. And I thought she was very subtle, very powerful. And so we reached out to her, and then when she agreed to have a call to discuss the role, that is always, generally speaking, that's always the defining moment, right? Is the communication, the conversation with the actor, and what they how they respond to your ideas, and how many ideas they come into the project with. And I think what really struck me about her, and that was the same for Isabelle as well as Rory and Judith and all my other cast members, you know, she was very curious. She really wanted to find a way to enter this time period that none of us lived in, to portray it as realistically, or as truthfully rather, as possible. And so we talked for like about 45 minutes to an hour, and like we were really, like, it was a very meaningful conversation. And noticed that on top of a great, fantastic actor, she was just incredibly curious. She asked about the accent and about the body language and the costumes and the story and everything. And that was my experience with Isabelle as well. You know, they were very attracted to the idea of shooting a movie that's set in a completely different world, and that where they were not allowed to speak too much. That was an incredible like source of inspiration for all of us, and especially for them. And when I saw that they were as inspired by that specific concept as I was, I knew that I made the right choice.
Great. What was their collaboration like?
It was great. I mean, it went all the way from pre-production, talking about research, discussing ideas from you know, about the costumes and the hair and makeup especially, and the body language and the accent. That was really fun. And then when we got on set, you know, like I wish every director could work with them, honestly, because they're incredible performers, and they get it all right, and that's really important. That's wonderful. But really, what's not visible, what people can't see in the movie, but what's equally as important is how they carry themselves on set. And they built a very positive, very amicable, very collaborative environment. They helped me kind of get through the day a little bit. They quite honestly, they even, you know, like they taught me, having more experience than I do, being on film sets and shooting, you know, dark stories. They taught me, you know, to find moments to laugh and to smile, and to, you know, find some moments of levity during the shoot. And so that made it its way into the collaboration with them, especially because they were the two actors that I spent most of the time with. It just informed the rest of the process so much, and I'm very grateful that they could bring that other aspect of it into it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, they're both wonderful. Indeed. So do you have any preferred genres and any favorite films?
Favorite films, I'm always pretty terrible at answering that question, to be honest. I think as far as genres, you know, I do like to work within genre. I think I do like the idea that, especially horror, thriller, they are a bigger umbrella than we used to give them credit for. And for me, it's very important when I'm making, I mean, people who see my movie, they will realize without me having to tell them that, you know, like I really love to bring a lot of drama into any horror thriller movie that I may write or direct. And so, because for me, that's very important. Like, I think my goal was to unearth and like show the horror of the story as it comes from the people, like the real people that are in it. And my movie has supernatural elements, and, you know, like there's this kind of mythology that precurs the story and kind of catches everybody by, you know, one step ahead. But all these things, I think, to me, they had to pale in comparison to the horror brought about by the family members, what they're doing. And I think that is a very like dramatic kind of bone that my movie has that I really enjoy. And so that is, generally speaking, like kind of like hybrid, like horror drama, horror thriller, psychological thrillers. Those are definitely genres and subgenres that I appreciate. I grew up watching a lot of European cinema, a lot of Italian, a lot of Swedish cinema. I think I try to watch as little as possible when I'm preparing a movie. So I try to not bring too many movie references into my movies, because I think there's so many great movies that are better than mine, that are so great, that it's so easy to get seduced by them. So I try to not watch them. But
Mhm.
like I think a lot of like the Swedish sort of cinema of Bergman, for instance, is, I think, as far as a director, that's probably the biggest influence that I have, and the one that made its way into this movie in particular. So many of the movies that he has made, I could pull a few, but yeah.
Cool. Are there any other aspects of the entertainment industry that you'd like to pursue?
I mean, I see myself, and I think everybody to some degree always does it, to produce a little bit, especially on your first movie, especially when the movies are small. You kind of have to put your producer's hat on a little bit,
Mhm.
no matter who you actually are in the production chain. I think in the future, I see myself directing more than I do writing. So if anything, I see a switch happening in that direction. But right now, and for the foreseeable future, writing is a big part of my process, and I'm really enjoying it, and I continue to do so. Hopefully more, more and more successfully. I think that's kind of the skill set that develops the slowest. It's possibly, like, to me, it's the big kind of boulder to lift, to write a script that's sound and engaging and kind of as airtight as it can be. And I think that for anybody who makes movies, that's the biggest learning curve. So not necessarily switching out of these two positions, but either focusing more on directing, or being patient with the writing so that it can get better and better. But yeah, I see my career continuing on this path.
Awesome. So do you have any projects that you're waiting to get back to?
I've been working on another movie that's currently in the writing stages, where I'm going to be collaborating with some of the people that I've worked on this first movie. And I cannot really share many details about the plot, but it is going to be a similar kind of period piece, folklore. Probably not as horror as this one, but yeah. So you'll see me probably deal with some similar topics and themes as the first one.
Is folklore something you like that kind of drives you as a filmmaker?
Very much, yeah. It's kind of a nice entryway for me into anything I write. I'm from Italy, and my background as far as school, especially, we did a lot of Latin and Greek mythology, and that kind of stamped itself on, like, it's something that I always go back to. And when it comes to folklore more specifically, it doesn't have to be necessarily from those areas. Like, I love a lot of of course, North American folklore, as you'll see in the movie a little bit, Central European, Northern European folklore. It's just, there's such a plethora of like great stories and characters and themes to explore. And like, I have a great fascination for trying to bring those stories into a more modern setting, because I think it's just, there's such a big contrast, because of course some of the characters and the things that they do, they're not applicable to how we intend the world now and nowadays. Like, for instance, a lot of folklore has, generally speaking, very monodimensional female characters. And for me, what is interesting is to take inspirations from the stories, break down the stereotypes about certain characters, and seeing how us in a modern setting can relate to those and can break those kind of folkloric archetypes, and see how relevant they are for us. But yeah, it's something I'm very fascinated by.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of great stories in folklore and mythology. So who inspires you in the industry?
Who inspired me directly or indirectly?
Either or both.
Either.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, I've been very lucky, like, as far as my personal process, like, I started to work on this movie with producers who have a long tracking record in this industry. And I think as far as both support and inspiration, working with people who have made 20 movies has always been very, very, very helpful. And I think I do look at, talking about my folks from Intrinsic Value Films, Eisen, Robbins, Amy Shoof, they started to work with us and my other producers on this movie, and like, they have provided help and a great source of inspiration because they've made a lot of movies and they've like kind of stuck through a lot in this industry. So in a very direct way, definitely them. Indirectly, like I said, I'm a big fan of European cinema, especially, like post-war European cinema. It's very, it's something that, I don't know. There are a few examples, I think, of like better films or more soulful and compelling movies. And so I just look up to a lot of those artists, like from like a lot of Italian artists and a lot of Northern European cinema. So yeah, that's kind of that.
Awesome. So with the popularity of streaming services like Netflix, and they've obviously been a lifeblood for the last year and a half, what do you think the future of cinema is?
Well, that's a lot of question. It's I don't know. I mean, I'm very grateful, for instance, because our movie is going to be premiering on Shudder in 2022, and so we've been lucky enough to be picked up by them, and like they are, I think, an example of a streaming service. There's a lot of great, like curated work for cinema that I think advances the conversation a lot. I just believe that, I mean, when you're making a movie, and that's me at least, the ultimate goal is for people, as many people, to see it. Not out of, self-obsessiveness or narcissism. It's just a matter of having a conversation, right? And the more people you can connect with, the more people can hopefully hear what you have to say, the better. And I think streaming services have made that conversation much more democratic. And sometimes I get a little unnerved by the kind of like only in theaters, only in the cinemas type of attitude or conversation, because first, I don't think that takes into consideration the fact that not many people feel safe going to the cinema right now, number one. And number two, I live in New York and it's very expensive to go to a movie theater. And there are a lot of people who get to watch movies on their TVs that they wouldn't get to watch if they had to only watch in the theaters. So I think the future is, I don't know, I see it very, very bright because I think there's more coming out, and there is such greatness coming out of, not just movies, but also TV. And so it's, I don't know, I think the proliferation of streaming services is bringing about a lot of good things. It's like a lot of movies that get financed now through streaming platforms that would never be financed if it were just for the movie theaters. And I just don't think that, like, I think the whole argument of the things are good in the theater, but they're not as good when you watch them on your TV, that there's lesser content on TV, it's BS to me. Like, I think I'm very hopeful, and I'm very actually inspired by how streaming platforms have advanced the conversation. A lot of people getting to make movies that they never would have gotten to make. And I think now streaming platforms, I mean, honestly, I think that Shudder is taking kind of a risk with us ultimately, because my movie is not a very conventional horror film, and they love it, and they're very supportive, and they're so behind it. And, that is fantastic. And, like, streaming services are really daring, and they're helping people get to the material, like both audiences and creators. And so I'm very much in favor of the proliferation of streaming.
Me too. Yeah, I've been watching streaming services. I love them. I've got like Netflix, Amazon, Disney Plus. Yeah, and more coming.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, they are kind of replacing what TV channels used to be. Like, I'm fairly young, but I for most of my life, we would zap through channels and look for things to watch like that. And I think now every channel just holds in like 1,000 films. And just as a director, you want people to watch your movies. Yeah. That's the reason why you make them. And so streaming services are there for it. And so it's awesome. I'm very, very happy about that.
Yeah. Now, it's playing at FrightFest this weekend. What are you hoping the audience will take away from The Last Thing Mary Saw when they get to see it?
Well, I mean, I'm very curious to see how the experience, if at all, changes watching in a movie theater, because it is a very atmospheric movie, and I think that can, that can change the experience partially. So I'm very curious to hear reactions from that. And yeah, I mean, it's a story like this is a dark, like love tale, like about impossible love, and it is about people fighting against a world that's been written out for them. And so hopefully this can create a conversation about like still how many barriers we tend to create for people every day in life. And I think as much as the story happens in the 1800s, it's like my goal was always to make something that could be relevant to a conversation nowadays. So hopefully people can take something from that.
Awesome. And just finally, where can we find you online to keep up with everything you're doing?
I just joined Twitter, actually, so you can find me definitely there. I'm going to be posting some reviews, updates on the movie, and whatnot. There's a nice little links tree on my profile that can redirect you to all the news relative to The Last Thing Mary Saw. So definitely look me up on Twitter.
Awesome. All right. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today.
Of course.
Yeah, congratulations with the film, and I look forward to what you do next.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate the chat.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for more content next time.
I'm here on the largest of the Balearic Islands, Mallorca, with the turquoise waters of the Mediterranean Sea, beautiful mountainous landscape, the thriving city of Palma, quaint little market towns, a growing number of luxury hotels. It's no surprise that the likes of Audrey Hepburn and Elizabeth Taylor like to holiday here. So come and join me as I take you around Mallorca.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. If you like this video, be sure to click that thumbs up button at the bottom of your screen. And also be sure to subscribe to the Fan Carpet YouTube channels. They're absolutely free and so much fun too. Be sure to check out the official website, thefancarpet.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date with reviews, competitions, the latest news, and so much more.